another change related to behavior in PvP, which is that if you have a mute on your account, then you will not be able to queue until that mute has expired. Best update you put out last night on God. Interesting. AX Breeze, nice update. You just killed the game. That's interesting. If it's a short mute, then you will be able to queue when that mute is over. If it's a long mute, well, I guess I'd have to ask myself why you got a long mute in the first place. So, does this mean that mute appeals will be a bit more lenient? I don't know. That is not a me issue. That is a customer service issue. A lot of y'all seem to have really long mutes. Well, a lot of y'all PvP players seem to have really long mutes. Please tell me this is going to be reverted. Don't know. Permanent mute cannot PvP. Well, technically, there's no such thing as a permanent mute. But I was a bad girl, but I have learned from my mistakes. As a grown citizen now, I deserve an unmute. Okay, then contact customer support. There you go. Wiz is the only game where you can wait out 10-year mute, and it's relatively worth. Interesting. Some of my friends got permanent muted 5 years ago, but have changed. Then your friends should plead their case in place. Kyle says effectively the queue is dead. Some of them might have been really young when they're muted. Is it really that easy to get muted? Well, it's not easy to get a really long mute. To get a really long mute, you have to do something pretty egregious. Little meat beef. I literally got permanent muted for getting asked my Discord. Then that should be very easy for you to ask us for support to deal with. Usually, there's more to the story than folks let on. Did you get out to Discord? I was muted for flaming my brother last year because he took my MacBook without permission. I'd say y'all unmute all and warn that a single cuss word would result in permanent mute. I guarantee you, a majority would be scared to face consequences against they would comply. They don't want people to be scared of consequences. There need to be consequences. So I'm a firm believer in consequences. Of course, that's wild. Y'all finna get major backlash. I guess it's a week max until it's reverted. We'll see. We'll see. But I think generally people with really, really long mutes generally deserve it. Insane Lover. Although I'm not muted, I do think the PvP mute change was quite strange and bad. That's interesting to hear that because on any other day, what I hear is these people are horrible and they say they're harassing people and they say racist things all the time. And why are they still around? Well, there you go. There you go. I feel like I've been signing off for months and months, suggesting that people behave and be nice. Can I ask why this is part of the update? I think that is it's self-evident why that was part of the update. I don't believe a ban from PvP if you're muted is fair. If you receive punishment for being muted, and if what they've said is that bad, then just suspend or ban them. Surely a fairer outcome. I don't understand. You're saying that the people who have been muted, it would be more fair to remove them from the game entirely than just to remove them from a side system. I'm not sure I follow that. Kyle B, I'm just done. I'm canceling my subscription. I'm leaving all KI games behind because y'all have something wrong eternally. That is a strange reaction. Do I consider jading to be cheating in 1v1? No, I consider jading to be unsportsmanlike. At least lower the mute times, in my opinion. Sneaky Sunshine, that is customer support issues. So they hand out the mutes. I've seen KI give out mutes until 2050. I've seen longer than that, actually. Did anything happen to the Jays like Wolf Dark and Andrew? I will not comment on specific people. So with respect to the jading thing, there's a few things going on. There's an issue with an exploit in the timer. That bug should be fixed. So that particular exploit, which is a behavior issue, that exploit has been fixed, and some action has been taken with respect to that behavior. There is also another change related to behavior in PvP, which is that if you have a mute on your account, then you will not be able to queue until that mute has expired. I would say at this point, if you are intentionally disconnecting your account, given the fact that we know when you do that, you would be a not smart person. Low IQ Raven, I have figured out a better way to freeze the timer. It can tell you in exchange for unmute. Wouldn't you say this is an attempt to put a plaster over the wound without actually resolving the issue? There are ways around mutes. Jades were formed by poor gear choice by KI. The mute issue is not a Jade issue. The mute issue is related to behavior. There are Jades who have bad behavior. There are Jades who don't have bad behavior. There are Jades who don't exploit. Ratbeard, I am typically very patient understanding KI's direction, besides the mark, of course, but heavily disagree with new mute change for PvP. Any explanations as to why it happened? Yes, because we would like to clean up some of the toxicity in PvP. I'm curious what benefit does banning mutes from PvP do? They are muted. Were mutes able to be toxic in PvP with menu chat? For the record, I'm not muted. To some degree, I mean, I think some people tend to not care about the mute that they get on their main account, and then they'll create a separate account that just goes in and continues to harass people, and they rinse and repeat this. They'll just continue to make talkie accounts while they continue to play on their main account. I don't think banning mutes from PvP solves toxicity. I do think it will correct behavior. I think it will. So I would hate to say that PvP generates toxicity, but anything competitive to a certain degree does, and particularly when people feel like they can continue to engage in that activity with alternate accounts or even not talking at all. There are ways to be abusive through that. So I suspect that this will correct some behavior. Lost Grip, but here's the issue. I think there's a lot of people who've been unfairly muted in the first place. That could be an actual case of false report issues become a commonality. But false report will not get you a long mute. I don't think people are muted for saying silly things like "let's have hex" or "friendly whiz." That is not my call. But you know what you're not supposed to be doing. That really is a you problem. There needs to be mute classifications. There are, and that's a customer support issue. So they hand out mutes of varying lengths and various behavior. I'm not sure this change makes sense, given that it feels like kicking muted players down further. But hey, it doesn't apply to me. I know, but I just refer to that. So I don't hand out the mutes. Customer support hands out the mutes. If you feel that you've been unfairly muted, or if you feel that you've served your time and you'd like to request an unmute, then there's a process for that. We know you can't do anything about it, but we just want you to get the message across since you really work for them. Yes, I do work for them, and we have had lots of time to discuss this internally, and we have done that. Does next gen still count the bus before removal, or was that changed? It will. Although I heard Sauce talk about it last night, so let me clarify what is actually happening with those spells. What Sauce said was happening was all the blades were going off, and then all the blades are being doubled. That is not correct. That is not what is happening. The spell is set up as a conditional, so that one of two damaged things take effect. Let's take. Well, I would take the Storm Djinn because I think I remember the damage. I think Storm Djinn is 1400, or Storm Scion is 1400 2800, right? So if the blades pop, it's simply visually displaying those blades popping. In other words, being used to modify the spell at the top of the cinematic, right? But they're only modifying the base damage, right? So if you see the blades being removed, right, then they are modifying either 1400 or 2800. They are not, for example, modifying some base damage that is then doubled. That's not how the spells work. The spells don't. The gambit condition doesn't double the damage. The gambit condition says, does this spell do 1400 or does this spell do 2800? As I have said before, if you are exploiting a bug in the game, right, if you're exploiting, then you are putting your account at risk. Sean says, are the queue times going to be mine? As a player in good standing, I would rather have mutes in queue than 20-minute wait times. I wouldn't. Overtime, not even muted, and that hurts to hear because it's a flawed system. Maybe. I tend to think that it's not a flawed system. I tend to think that the players engage in toxic behavior, especially around PvP, and they don't feel like there's any consequences for bad behavior if they're able to continue engaging in their favorite activity, PvP, and then just hop on other accounts and continue to harass people. I think that's a flawed system. We did discuss the size of this net, so Guess's reaction is not unanticipated. There isn't anyone to PvP against anymore. Biggest con. Yeah, it's just weird. Why do so many PvP players have these really long mutes? This is an absolutist approach for a complex, nuanced problem. I don't agree with that. I think the nuance is on the customer support side of it, right? If there's nuance to how a mute should be applied, then that is on the customer support side. We trust customer support to be handing out mutes appropriately. Included as a behavioral issue if someone is being muted. Kirk says that's where we disagree. The way the CS handles mutes is hit or miss. That's where the issues seem to arise. I don't think anybody in chat has said anything like that so far. Lord, I won't read that, Dakota, but I sure as heck appreciate it. All right.